You probably heard somewhere on the internet that there's a magic retirement number. You need $1 million to retire. Seems like the number's going up lately. It's not even a million anymore, but it's repeated everywhere. Articles, TikToks, calculators, other YouTube videos. Here's the truth. I've helped hundreds of clients retire and retire well without hitting that number. And in today's video, I want to show you why your retirement isn't about hitting a number. It's about understanding two things: how much income you can generate in retirement and how much you need to spend. And stick around, because I'll walk you through a real case study of someone who retired with less than $1 million and how you might be able to do the same. So let's talk about the magic number myth. Let's talk about this obsession with the $1 million. Where does it come from? Well, mostly it comes from fear, and then it comes from like clickbait and the fact that it's a nice round number. It feels good. I have $1 million. I'm a millionaire. And the financial media loves to throw it around. But here's where this runs into problems in real life. Your lifestyle doesn't care about your portfolio value. It cares about cash flow. It's not, do you have $1 million? You can't call up the electric company and tell them, don't worry about it. I got a portfolio with $1 million in it. You actually have to send them some money to keep the lights on. Same goes for the cell phone, the streaming service, the restaurant, all of that stuff. That's why cash flow, not asset value, is what makes for lasting success in retirement. And so all of these clickbait articles are sort of rooted in the idea that, well, if the pot of money's big enough, you don't have to worry about running out. But that's a foolish and inefficient way to solve the problem. Remember, the problem here is, how do I create a retirement paycheck that shows up like clockwork, just like you've had for your entire working career? How do we recreate that cash flow without worrying about running out of money? Let me give you an example. Think through this and pick one of these scenarios. Pretend that you have two choices for retirement. Choice number one, you have a room in your house with $1 million in it. And every month, on the first of the month, you walk into the room to get the money you need to cover your expenses. Sometimes the money's grown over the last month. Sometimes you have a little bit more. Sometimes there's actually a little less money in there because it lost some money over the course of the month. And over time, you start to become keenly aware of the size of the pile of money and whether it's getting bigger or smaller. And when the pile shrinks and you still need to live your life, fear sets in. You tighten up, you start spending less, and it changes your day to day. Now, I'll give you option number two. Here's the second choice. Same room. Let's say that it's got half of that amount in it. It's got $500,000 instead of $1 million. But here's the rub. You don't need any of it to live on. You get regular checks that come in every month that cover all of your day-to-day expenses. So you want to go out to eat? No big deal. You got a paycheck. You want to sign up for the new streaming service? Cool. I got it covered. I got a paycheck that'll pay for it. So periodically, you still want to pop into the money room and look around, just check out the pile of money and see what's going on. Maybe sometimes you take a little piece for the trip to Italy, to help your daughter with the wedding. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You don't need the money for income. So now you can use it for whatever you like. Which one of those scenarios sounds like a better retirement to you? It's obviously the second one, because it sounds like what you know. You want to retire so that you can make your time your own. You just don't want to quit your paychecks. So now you have to create a retirement paycheck. We like the check. We just don't want to do the work anymore. And so the key to a successful retirement is quitting the job, but not quitting the paycheck. And so if you want to do that, a couple of things matter. The first one is expenses. And I don't say this in terms of like, you need to cut your expenses and live like a pauper so that you can retire, because that sounds awful and miserable, and I don't recommend that at all. I say you need to know your expenses because you have to understand how much of a paycheck you need before you can figure out if you're able to fund it and therefore live a good retirement. And to do that, you've got to know what that number is. Now, probably 80% of the people I talk to have no real idea what they need. And I suppose that's okay, because that's part of the reason why I have a job, right? If everybody could do this for themselves, you wouldn't need me. But whether I help you or you do it on your own, you've got to know what's going out the door so that you can see if you're on track or not. Here's a pro tip. Go online to your bank account, download 6 or 12 months worth of transactions from your checking account, and start peeling through it to figure out how much you really spend. Adjust it for things that you won't spend anymore in retirement or for expenses that'll stop. For example, if the house is about to be paid off in another 6 months or a year, you don't need to cover that house payment every month for the next 30 years. And so adjust what you're spending accordingly. The point here isn't to cut spending. The point is to understand it so that you can know how much of a retirement paycheck you need to build. So now let's move on to the second part, income. As I said earlier in the video, I've said it many times. If I ever talk to you in person, I've probably said this to you. You don't retire on assets, you retire on income. That means Social Security, pensions if you're lucky enough to have one, and what I call manufactured income. Annuities that pay a monthly check, interest-bearing investments like CDs or bonds, dividend-paying stocks, real estate investment trusts, the sort of investments that pay you just to own them. And that regular, every month, passive income becomes your retirement paycheck. Now let's get into putting this in action. Let's get into the case study that I talked about. Let me introduce you to Jack and Linda, not their real names. As you know, I change things for YouTube because I can't just be out here telling people's private business on the internet. I'm going to keep this fairly brief so that we're not here all day. But for what it's worth, I've got lots of other deep dive case study videos on the channel if that's your thing. I'm pretty sure I made a playlist of them. If I haven't, I'll make one and I'll link it at the end of this video if you want to see these sorts of scenarios in more detail. But what I'm going to show you is an abbreviated version of the Clear Vision Retirement Plan in action. Let's see how it works. Back to Jack and Linda. They're 63 years old. They want to retire next year. They saved $870,000, a nice chunk. They're not at $1 million yet. They think maybe they need to get a little bit more to get there. We're going to show them otherwise. The $870,000 they have, $600,000 in 401ks, $150,000 in an after-tax brokerage account, and $120,000 in cash and CDs. Fairly well rounded here. And so let's look at their income starting point. They don't have a pension, but between them, they'll receive about $38,000 a year from Social Security starting at age 64. They're frugal, but they're comfortable. They have very low expenses. They're targeting around $65,000 a year in retirement income. And so as is, once the Social Security hits, we've got a gap of around $27,000 a year in income from what they need, what's going to go out, and what they'll have coming in. We won't get into the other goals of the video today, the travel, the bucket list stuff. We're just going to solve the income right now, like I said, to keep it concise. And so here's the plan. Social Security covers the first $38,000 a year. We build out a bucket plan for them that led to $70,000 in bucket one cash. That's their reserve money, short-term income, that sort of thing. $200,000 in this case went to a joint lifetime annuity that would give them about $15,000 per year in income. And then we filled up bucket number two with another $200,000 of the portfolio in income-producing assets that we believe we can get about $10,000 a year in recurring income from, while preserving the principal value of that money. That brought their total recurring income to $63,000 of the $65,000 we need. Social Security, the annuity, the bucket two income assets, and it still left them with $70,000 of cash reserve and $400,000 of long-term growth money, future money, stuff that can be used for the fun stuff or for tax planning, Roth conversions, lowering future tax bills, potentially financial legacy somewhere down the road. As you can see here, even starting with less than $1 million, we were able to put together a reasonable plan that drastically reduced their risk of running out of money, created those stable monthly retirement paychecks, and allowed them to retire and get on with enjoying their life rather than chasing an arbitrary number. No guesswork, no panic when the market dips. They're not drawing down their assets aggressively. They've created retirement paychecks for themselves. Here's the moral of the story. Do you need to save and invest? Of course you need to save and invest. You have to have some assets, some resources to be able to have a plan in the first place. But don't get paralyzed by chasing a number. You don't need $1 million to retire. You need a retirement income plan. That's what we help people do every day. We call it the Clear Vision Retirement Plan, and it's built around creating retirement paychecks that take the guesswork out of retirement planning. If you want to know whether you can retire, maybe even sooner than you think, let's find out together. You can click the link in the description to book a conversation with me, and we'll review your situation and tell you how we may be able to help. And while you're brushing up on retirement planning on YouTube, here's that playlist I talked about. Go on over and check it out.